Hello?
Yo, yo! How you doing, mate?
I'm doing alright.
Thank you for the patience there. Sorry for starting a
A
little bit
little
late.
harder than I thought I would, hearing you in a Discord call, but other than that, I'm pretty good.
Awesome, man. Dude, such incredible prep by you, by the way. So, people come to coaching sessions with different amounts of prep, and I had a bit of time this morning. I was watching the EPT games of there was Nina in Australia, and I was like, oh, okay, I might as well, read through your document fully and before my stream, and kind of sent you those messages. So I was like, yeah, I mean, because I looked at it, I was kind of like, we don't really know exactly what we're gonna do in the hour. And I was like, oh, if I send this to you, maybe we can get some more. So awesome info there. Make sure you get your document open. I'll link it to you here. Give us a sec. And I've copy pasted everything you wrote to me on Discord into that.
Okay.
Sorry, I've tried to. One sec. And I'll link it to you in Discord in a sec. Make sure you, the hell is wrong with my keyboard? It's not letting me copy paste. Oh my god. Well,
Is this the one that you just invited me to edit right when we first started everything?
Yep, I see you're in there. Peter coaching prelim info.
Yeah.
Yep. Fantastic.
Alright.
Kurt, can you do me a favor and copy paste from Discord? Oh, there we go. It decided to come down.
Oh, I did that.
Oh,
so,
you did that? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right.
By the power of the working keyboard.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird. I can type. My keyboard's working. It just won't copy paste from Discord for some reason. Discord's kind of saying, no, you're not allowed to copy paste today.
Huh.
Which is, I don't know, something weird's happening. Oh, there we go. It's working now. Anyway, it was on dark mode. So let's, I guess we can just go, it doesn't matter what font. Sorry,
I hope someday my Zerg's on dark mode.
Don't we all, mate?
Right?
It's like, yeah, I also wish I could win the games. Always against the best players in the world. I wouldn't mind a world championship runner-up in another one. I mean, literally, in terms of world championships, SOS has won 2, technically. Actually, him and Dark and Life are tied. They both won one and came second in another. But Life is Voldemort. We don't speak about him anymore.
Right.
So, well. Cool, man. Okay, so Lurker is your spirit animal. It's your Patronus, right? Is what we kind of got to.
Yeah, you put it in the ground, and then it shoots out the spines with cool sound effects, and then fucking everything dies. And
Alright.
I like that. And on top of all that, my Protoss practice partner has been struggling with them, so anytime I need to tilt them off the face of the planet, they're the go-to.
Awesome. It's kind of funny, right? Because like I was really pushing you with this idea of let's always have pre-planned timing attacks, and especially with Terran and Protoss, it's so important until we get to and at a much higher level, those timing attacks we definitely move away from them a lot more. We're like building to it, and then we see certain things, we choose to go down a different line. But until we get to that very high level as a Terran or a Protoss, it's like, now you just fucking commit to that attack every game, and it's a great way to direct your improvement. Now, you can play that style as Zerg, but it's not as standard, right? It is a bit more of a reactive and flexible race. Now, it's still good to have timing attacks in mind and things, and sometimes it's as simple as like, oh, well, I'm playing Roach Hydra Lurker. I always, as soon as my Lurker ends up, make 6 Lurkers, and I go for a big push and try to get damage done. And there is obviously scouting tells, well, wait, he's coming out to all in me.
Right.
I'm actually going to be a bit more defensive with this and go to the next step. But because I was kind of rushing on a timer to get that Lurker push going, I've actually made myself safe against his attack at the same time. And hey, if he wasn't pushing out with this, and he was trying to go super greedy, I'd get in there and maybe get him right before Storm finishes. Or he's got Storm, but he doesn't have much support, and you get sieged up on his 3rd or his 4th, and, you do damage. And it just builds something, and that forces you to get out there and touch up your opponent, sometimes win the game, sometimes keeps you safe. So it's good to have that in mind, and I like what you've added here, where you've kind of said, like, okay, sometimes you like to do different like run bys and things, and you like to kind of move your army over one way and then come in from another side and that sort of stuff. Let's just read through the rest of this in a little bit more detail. So your build orders, your timings, and your tech have been a bit, not super refined, so your build orders could definitely use work, is what you've mentioned. in terms of late game, you like to just get a big economy, Ling Hydra Lurker, and then you actually said you like to use Spellcaster support. So you're a Viper guy or an Infestor guy? Like,
I prefer Vipers because being able to just turn off the ground army is cool. But I've been trying to use both and just practice the control groups of having, maybe main army on 1, Infestors on 2, Viper on 3. Not necessarily using all 3, but my last couple games I've had Mech and then pure Sky Toss, so I've kind of tried the spellcasters. Actually used Microbial Shroud, which blew my brain. But I'd say if I had to choose one, I would go with Viper before Infestor.
Well, especially with your style, you're a Hydra Lurker guy. The Viper is so good at that, and if anything, looking at what you've said with this tendency to late game and stuff at your MMR, I kind of, my tendency is always to simplify. It's to scale things back. It's not to make Infestors and Vipers for the fuck of it. I actually almost never encourage people to have both spellcasters as a Zerg. Okay. There's a lot of high GMs who don't know how to use spellcasters at all. Like, I'm not even kidding. As Zerg, because there's so much you can do with good unit movement and other units. And also for you, the things that'll tend to pick you apart as a Lurker player is good movement from your opponent, good run-bys, good drops, good counterattacks. So more important than having an extra control group for Infestors and trying to like combo Blinding Cloud and Fungal or something, it's to be better at having your drop defense squad, which can also turn into its own kind of backstab or counterattack squad. So you can do a Lurker push on 2 separate bases. You got like a little mini squad of Lurker Hydra that goes and does a little attack that you don't mind losing because it's only a small section of your army. But you can also, if your opponent's very active with drops and run-bys, you use that, that goes, I see a prism coming across the map, that goes and defends the main, or that goes down and defends my 4th from these, these marine drops and things that keep happening in this game. And it allows me to defend multiple areas on the map, which is the immobility is the weakness of Lurkers. So I guess just starting off here with random notes and things, just we're kind of getting a feel for you as a player first, and obviously the first session is always, I got to kind of understand where you're coming from, and it takes a little bit longer, and any future sessions we get through a bit more.
And that's something where me as the golf coach here, I thought when I was writing all this, like, what is shit I would want to know. So I totally get it, because I'm like, hey, here's a golf ball, go hit it. And then you just kind of watch. So is there anything else, I guess, you need?
Well, we've got a lot of good questions and things. Oh, you've gone and edited that down the bottom. Great. Fantastic. Cool. And you'd already written down your build orders. I mean, so in terms of today, there's a few different focuses we can have. So in terms of like some goals, I've just got some random notes up the top that we'll just add to. But some goals would be, I assume, tightening up your openings or your build orders, like a bit more set timings with like when Roach Warrens go down and that sort of stuff.
Right.
What else? What would be some big goals for today?
So I just want to know, like, I've gotten pretty, or at least made it a point in the last few games to kind of pay attention to gathering more information because, like you said, Zerg is reactionary and I like doing that, just reacting to what they're doing. But I'm kind of at that point of like, what do I do with the information presented? If I get an Overlord in, like, cool, they have a Stargate or they have a Starport, but, I just kind of take note of that and then struggle to apply that to changing what I'm doing at all and having a more effective defense.
So one of the big problems, so what I actually, and I was just talking to my friend Apop, who's another streamer, earlier this morning about this, and because he was having trouble in ZVP specifically, and I was like, send me your build order, write out your build order, what's giving you trouble, send it to me on Discord. And he did so, and I looked at it, and I was like, he's a bit higher level than you. He's like Masters 3 or Diamond 1, I believe. I believe he's Masters 3, I think, at the moment. I'm not sure exactly, but he was his build was like, he's checking the warp gate. Is that spinning at the start? Is there, what's popping out of the gateway first? Is it Twilight? If it's Twilight first, is it Charge or is it DTs? There was like 16 different reactions built into his play. And I was like, whoa, dude, this is actually overload. Like, this is actually too much. Like, this is too complicated. And that's something where the way that I like to formalize learning in StarCraft and get people to think about it is, actually what's more important before set scout timings, reacting and scouting / map control is actually map control is the more important thing, right? So that's spotting lings, overlords, on the edges, that sort of stuff.
Right.
Because that's something which is very just intuitive. Oh, he's coming out with a lot of fighting things. Okay, I should stop building drones and build fighting things, right?
Right.
He's taking a third base. Cool. So I know, I can maybe start my fourth hatchery and maybe drone my third up a bunch, or that there's some sort of intuitive relational thing you can read from that without a massive amount of game knowledge. And obviously we can work on the details of that, but map control first and foremost. So I would say 90% of the time, map control is actually something you want to get better at before focusing too much on scouting.
Okay.
And then as we get better at scouting, the way we want to formalize that and the way we want to kind of work on improving that, right, is like you want to just have a few set scout timings. Often it's like, it's the first overlord kind of checks out what's going on or something. And then it's like, okay, maybe you do an overlord sacrifice. I'm just going to write out a few generic ones like overlord sacrifice 330. It's kind of like a, maybe you just do that versus every race, or maybe not versus Zerg. Maybe you do it versus Zerg to see if they got a lair or whatever. Who knows? It could also be overseer as soon as lair is done, right? And even if you just do those two timings every game, and you actually just kind of like look at what they're doing, that can be kind of nice. However, in terms of actual reactions, it's very hard to do that without first working on our own build order, right? So the way we want to kind of do it is improve our own framework / our build order, basically.
Yeah.
And then as we experience more things that punish our standard build, we grow branches out of that, right? Where we go, okay, well, it turns out if I actually see no drones on their expansion, and there, I do need to stop at just a handful of drones on my expansion and make a few extra banelings and zerglings or something like that. But the idea is we're often letting ourselves die, right? A lot of people kind of think, the scouting is going to be like, oh, cool. So I want to never die to aggression. There's so much that goes on in a StarCraft game. It's like, it's actually more important for you to use the ladder as practice, where if you are following your framework and working on executing that well, and you're not second guessing yourself, so you're staying confident and focused, and then you overshoot your drones because you're just following your build, but then you can load the replay up immediately and go, okay, what did I see? What was the tell? Or what was the broad category I could put this into that says, okay, I should have stopped at this amount of drones and built units. So it's kind of like basically identify problem. So what you do is you kind of define problem from opponent's point of view, So you might be like, don't just be like, oh, he killed me with zealots. Be like, oh, this was a 32 probe, fully pulled off gas charge zealot attack. He had no follow-up, like couldn't make any sentries. It's just charge zealots, right? So first of all, you define it from their point of view so we understand it. Then we say, what's the tell? So we kind of say, hey, what are some of the tells that we could see of it? And preferably, we want to focus on ones that we can see with our standard scouting, right? Because we don't want to be like, oh, I died to an all-in. I need to scout specifically for that all-in. Because there's like 100 attacks that can get you in StarCraft, right? And it's easy to fall down this track of like, we want to change our whole structure of how we play to deal with one thing that caught us off. And often it's like, actually, maybe I could have just not got supply block 2 times. And when I saw the attack move out with my Zergling spotter, the map control, that's where I could have just reacted and held on. So, and then we do exact response as the final one there, exact response. And it's like, all the little things get defined here, especially things you forget under pressure, right? That you might normally take for granted. Things you forget under pressure, like, oh, remember to build extra overlords as soon as you see the attack coming, right? Something that took me a long time to train as a StarCraft player was I see an attack move out, then I actually build overlords first. Unless I have a shitload of supply free, because often what would happen is I build units, I get over there, I'm looking at their army, I'm looking at it, I'm setting up, and then like the fight doesn't quite happen straight away, but I'm supply blocked, and I'm like, oh, and every single time I'm in a fight, I'm supply blocked, like just before the fight starts, where I'm like, wait a second, I could easily get another big round of units out and hold on against these attacks. So sometimes you program little things in like that. So I guess that's kind of an idea of some of the things that we'd focus on, big picture, and what you can use as the structure to help with that. Should we hop straight into a replay of a matchup and start kind of, we can mix that stuff in with also looking at tightening up your build order and making sure you kind of have a better framework so that we can then move on to working the reactions off of that?
Yeah, so I have a replay that I played today that's actually like quintessential me, where the dude made shit, and I was like, oh shit, he has shit, and got a little bit behind, and then kind of the things that I feel that I'm good at happen, and all that. So being able to pick apart the opening and that, I think would be fantastic. Really quick, just to shut my cat up, can I go feed her really quick?
Yeah, just do me a favor, host the replay up first, because then I can be looking through the replay without you and getting lots of info.
Okay.
So just in chat in game, just go /join space pig number 2. So pig 2, one word. And once you're in there, I should see you in the channel. What's your in-game name again?
It is the same
it's
as
your
mine.
crazy ass name that I can't say.
It's actually it's Zazaminrax. It's from the original World of Warcraft strategy guide, because I didn't have broadband internet at the time, so the only way I could experience WoW was kind of buy the strategy guide and sit in the corner and play it vicariously.
Dude, the old days, man. I love that shit. Yeah, I've read the Warcraft 2 manual 400 times as a kid.
Right.
Can you replay watch with others? And
Yes, sir.
then we can feed the hungry cat. Just make sure you make me promote to lobby host in the game. So just right click my name in the lobby, promote to lobby host. And I can take it away. Fantastic. All right, go feed the cat. Talk to you in a minute, mate.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So it's good we kind of, because he's a coach himself, we've got off on the right footing. We've organized what we want to focus on. I've given him some structure that he can very methodically apply to his own play. In terms of that, all those notes which I've just written down for him on that structure of improvement, right? So this is all going to start step 1, tightening the build and defining the build better. Then we're going to be from there learning kind of little standardized responses and things, which should be nice. So we've gone 16 hatch, looks like 18 gas, 17 pool. A couple little things, like he moved the drone over before even having the minerals for their gas, and same with the spawning pool. Both really good signs. His workers seem to all be doubled up. This looks like a pretty tight opening for a Diamond 3 player, I would say. Pretty damn tight.
I have returned.
Awesome, I was just saying, little details look really good in your opening. You know, moving drones over to build structures before you have the minerals, putting it down immediately. Looks like you're, queuing things up okay and stuff. While I just take a glance here, I will just take a glimpse at your mechanics answers, which I know you filled out.
Right.
What hotkey control group layout are you using again? Was it standard?
Yes. So I don't have anything outside of backspace is bound to a mouse button, so I can just backspace V and then click when I inject.
Oh, okay.
Or mouse button V and then.
And do you put all your queens on one control group? No, you have a creep queen hotkey on 6. And then you have all queens
so
on
I try
5.
and do that, but then I forget a lot. So that's like games like this, I will end up with all my.
Okay. That's cool. I mean, at least you've got like something to work on down the track when it becomes more of a priority for you. So it's something, it's like you're not particularly focused on it. If it somehow slides into the repertoire throughout the games, yes, but we're not really expecting it to. We're just kind of like, at some point down the line, we'll make it more of a priority. No worries. That's cool, man. Okay, cool. So this is, of course, the Zerg versus Terran we're looking at, and we want to kind of define the build order and refine it a lot more. Now, you've kind of said, look, in general, Hydra, Lurker, Ling is your happy composition. Now, in ZVT, you've written your standard composition is Lingbane with a question mark, and you said you really kind of wing it. You basically get the third hatch, and it's super loose from there. You're kind of just feeling it out and purely by feel playing this matchup.
And so that's how I had progressed, because originally I was like, oh my god, Baneling connects on Merc. That's shit, right?
Yeah.
And then I started playing a little bit, and I was like, I don't know, Lurkers are pretty cool too. And then so in the 3 weeks between us scheduling this and working on that, I've kind of figured out that Lurkers are the thing that I like.
Cool.
But originally, I just had the idea of, just 4 headbangs into them and call it good.
Well, if we do want to, I mean, so there is something where with the lurker style as a whole, we are presented with a unique opportunity. So I guess overall, something that we can choose to do. So there is a unique opportunity. And that is the fact that Roach Hydra Lurker into Vipers works in every matchup.
Okay.
And that's a unique opportunity because what we can do there is we can mean your mid to late game is shared across all 3 matchups. Your openings are going to be different. How you get there are going to be different, but it is still going to be the same unit type. Roaches for safety. Maybe you get Banelings early against, say, Zerg. If you opt for a quick third and you engage in the Lingbane skirmish part of the matchup. But in the other 2, it's kind of like Roaches for safety as needed, up into Hydras, up into Lurkers, up into Vipers. That is a way we could condense your practice, so to speak, where you can become the expert of Lurkers. And since this is normally something I would never advise, because I'd be like, well, I'm not just going to tell you, yeah, you should just do this because you're using 1 unit. But because you're,
right.
It's your Patronus, I say, fuck, that could be a cool idea. What do you reckon?
Yeah, no, I definitely like that. Especially, that works really well given in the middle of summer is when you're the busiest as a golf teacher, so just having one thing that I can keep track of and work on would help a ton.
Awesome, yeah. I mean, it's nice, because, like, the game still might feel a bit chaotic up to there and say your weaker matchup, you're like, but then it's like, hey, I've got Lurkers out, and, I got a Viper or 2, and, hey, I know this spot, there's that comfort zone. I like that, that's cool. So I think we could really do that. We could go Roach Hydra Lurk into Vipers, it works in every matchup, and we could work on that as a standard style. Now, that, of course, means we're going to disrupt what you're doing here, but I do think it will be a bit simpler. The cool thing about Roaches, not as much clickety-clack, not as many units to build, whereas with Lingbane, obviously very fragile, high damage, hypermobile, and also something that struggles really hard against battle mech. Roaches do are much easier against all forms of mech because they deal with Hellions. Now, you do need to deal with Cyclones quite specifically. So I guess we should talk about the theory of dealing with Cyclones. When you see Cyclones, are you just kind of hoping to get to Lurkers? Like, what's your tactical analysis
honestly,
of how to deal with it?
I didn't know. My only thought, because I honestly haven't played a ton at all. Like, I think I have maybe, at least on Zerg, like 55 games. In Legacy of the Void, and I played Protoss in Wings of Liberty, so I'm kind of very much just coming back.
Okay, cool.
So I was kind of like, oh, those are Cyclones. They lock on.
And then they run away.
Hydras and upgrades. Cool.
Yeah, Cyclones are really annoying. So the analogy I give... Do you like MMA or boxing or anything?
I follow it sparingly, but I pretty much just... all I do is follow golf, StarCraft,
Yeah, I know nothing about golf, so I definitely can't draw analogies from there. I'll be like...
well, as long as Cyril plays it, I'll have something in common. I golf and I play Zerg, so I'm basically the best in the world at something, right?
Hells yeah, man. Okay, so it's a long reach fighter, is what you're... This is a really skinny, tall guy. So what are you... You're one of these nugget fighters or boxers or whatever. And you're like a foot shorter than this guy, maybe more. And his arm, he's got like a 10-inch reach advantage on you. I'm talking like epic. So if you just stay at the right range, if he can keep you at the right range, he can just punch you in the face and like you don't even get a chance to swing back at him. You got to close the distance and get up in there. The cool thing is, because you got these little nugget arms and you are the same weight class as him, if you do actually connect with his jaw or get in on top of him, like you're if you can get into the clinch or something and you can land some close range punches, you can knock him out really fast. And what you're gonna find with Cyclones is it's like fighting an anorexic dude. Like he's just so skinny. Like you just like punch him once in the kidney and he just falls over and dies. And you're like, oh, that was it? Because up to that point, he's landed 35 unanswered punches on you, and it feels unfair. Because if they do it well, they're on the edge of creep, they scan, they kill the creep, they pick off a bunch of roaches, they run back, you try to run away, they chase you. You turn around and fight them, they run back, and they're just laughing at you the whole time. So just for the rules against battle mechs, so you understand it, and I did a whole long Instagram post ages back showing a clip of Cyril doing this immaculately in explaining the whole theory. where he did it with Ling Bane, where he surrounded the army, right? He was defending, pulling back, defend, pull back. It's very complicated with Ling Bane, but you can do the same thing with roaches, and that's what you're going to be doing, where it's you either sandwich him, corner him on the map, or you go and counterattack his mineral lines. Because what's going to be happening is just check. Yeah, sorry, shoot.
Sorry. In this game, I had the brief idea to rally, or just send a pocket of Zerglings of maybe a screen left of the high yield Vespene on this, and just run it behind them to keep him from pulling back. So that kind of idea thing where I just put something behind them so he can't run back. They got killed immediately by the rally, but that's the overall idea with Cyclones, right?
That's a good way to do it, and with roaches. And the thing is, so you got to understand the flexibility of it as well, right? So if you're doing that with roaches, there's two ways. So basically, it's split the majority, like the moment you have roach speed, that's going to be your moment. That's where you get some mobility. Okay. So because otherwise, obviously, roaches are so slow. You can be proactive. So up to that point, you may need to take a few punches. All right, you may need to Rocky Balboa it a bit. There's things like pull back up the high ground, and then he's got to scan. Right. If you run at him, he pulls back because he doesn't want to let you land hits on him, and then you quickly turn around. And if he's not really quick with his reactions, he might accidentally go out of lock-on range. So you use high ground, use low ground. See, there's lots of ways you can just buy time with the early skirmishes, which you did a good job of in this game, by the way, from what I saw. But the moment you have roach speed, split the majority of your army into your secondary control group and go. And this is where you're flexible. So if you think about that, all your new reinforcements, you might only have like 2 roaches you left at home, but all the roaches popping out are going into that army group, right? So that'll turn into a decent army. There's like maybe a moment where you're like, oh shit, should I really have no units here? But as long as you're pumping roaches nonstop, it'll very quickly. So with that, you go to run by. So basically go hit their mineral lines and or flank and sandwich them. But the important thing is to have both options, because sometimes they are really good with their control or the rally spots you or whatever. But go back, and I just want you to look at this from the Terran perspective. Check this shit out. Look at what he is doing. So let's even check. I bet he doesn't use control groups for his army. Oh, this one does. Hats off to this guy. This is the rare battle mech player.
Damn!
There are top GMs who do not control group their army when they use this style. You just F2 or blob around, and I'm like, well, you just... So you look at this. So often, even now, if you just got like 12 roaches over there, you just hit that mineral line, what's he going to do? He's going to bring one cyclone over. It takes forever to clean up. Cyclones actually don't do that much damage, even with Magfield, right? It's not the same as having 2 tanks on the high ground, which they're often skipping, right? So you're going to get in there, kill a bunch of SCVs, and this buys you a huge amount of time. His army's got to run all the way back across the map, or it's got to commit in. If he tries to commit in, you do that micro, that back and forth stuff I was talking about. He can't micro against that while he's losing SCVs. At his third, he's going to lose his base. He can't micro both spots at once. It's very fragile. You've got cheap, expendable, meaty units. So you can do big damage there. And then if you force tanks out, you take momentum out of the Cyclone production. If you force him to take some damage here and pull back, you buy yourself time. And then at some point, you can always rotate between, right? And then you can come back and do the sandwich. So depending on what avails itself, if you put him in more of a defensive stance, cool. Well, you can pull back, but then you can leave both blobs of your army. Keep it 50-50. 50% here, 50% here. And if he moves out on one side, that side, say he moves out at the top, that side pulls back, the other side pulls around and cuts him off from behind. And suddenly, at the very least, against an expert Terran with good map control, good awareness, he's going to have to just avoid you sandwiching him. But at the same time, he's not in your face on the edge of creek, picking off hatcheries, picking off roaches, because he's worried about the surround the whole time. So even by showing this split of units and doing a bit of threatening the surround and or threatening the run by, you totally take the wind out of their sails, because suddenly they can't just get to that range they want to get and just land those jabs in your face over and over, because they're worried that you're just going to tackle them to the ground and punch them in the fucking face, right? Like there's the Cyclones, the moment they get surrounded, this army disappears and they kill almost nothing. It's so inefficient if Cyclones get flanked. They are such a bad unit if they aren't doing the lock-on, runaway, right? So it's this cool thing where you can experience it and feel it's super powerful. It's awesome that you're already trying the Ling Bane run-bys. I would say it's much easier with roaches, in my opinion, because you could just run that blob of roaches into a base, start murdering the SCV. Sometimes you hit the natural and the third mineral line at the same time, and suddenly they're like, oh god, they're trying to run SCVs around. It really solves that issue. So now you've got that in mind, that should make it a lot easier for you. And in general, Lurkers and Vipers, amazing versus this comp, right? Just abduct all the Cyclones. Lurkers do great. So, really good stuff, man.
Yeah. So just one last thing. At the very end of this game, I think I did what you're saying as far as, like, map control and keeping tabs. So this is, like, I don't know, it'd be kind of at the very end left, but just have, or I had pockets of Zerglings and then my main army just see what he's doing. That would happen just with, obviously, roaches instead of lings, or is there a place for lings as well in this?
Well, lings are really good for run-bys. So if you've got lings left over from the early stage, you can definitely, you know, do some run-bys in mineral lines and stuff. Like, anytime you catch just a few Cyclones at home, they can't really deal with lings. But as long as there's a good amount of Hellions in the army, which they usually will have, don't even think about Zerglings. Just don't even consider it part of their repertoire, right? There'll be these players who are, like, always looking for ling surrounds on mech, and they're always looking for muta swaps and stuff. And it's actually almost, that's kind of the meta right now, is players doing that. It's really dumb. Basically, every Zerg's anti-mech at the moment involves building units that are bad versus mech and hoping to catch the Terran with his pants down. And there's only a certain amount of time you can be running around in the woods hoping to catch your opponent literally taking a dump, you know, with his pants around his ankles. It's not solid. You're using solid units, man. Roach, Hydra, Lurker, this is great versus mech stuff. Unfortunately, though, your upgrades are really late for the Hive, so we do need those Hive upgrades. Yeah. And obviously, that's partially we went Ling Bane first, and we've gone melee upgrades first. So then we've kind of, I don't know, did you go triple Evo? You did, yeah. We want to try to avoid that, a bit too expensive. But you needed to just chill, and you would have been fine. As it is, he didn't transition, right? Except now to BCs, which is a little bit too late for him. But definitely you had a good economy, you were protecting it, you had good map control. But normally you wouldn't be using Zerglings. Once you get to this stage, like, just get Vipers and just get more Lurkers and more Hydras. And as long as your Lurkers are sieged before a fight, the one thing that made me uncomfortable here is you were often trying to run and, like, burrow Lurkers on top of his Cyclones, which doesn't work out very well because the mag field is very powerful. It does, you know, lock on, and as long as they pull back, they will kill a bunch of them. This attack's totally fine here, I guess. Let's take a look. So, yeah, obviously they get decimated if they run into the Lurkers. That's just insane how good the splash is.
No, I definitely feel what you're saying. So, the biggest difference...
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you shoot.
Okay, so I guess I've gotten this mentality. The two problems that I'm thinking of, at least with how I'm approaching the game, different from what you're recommending. I've gotten into this, I've watched enough casts where somebody gets to max pop on, like, Roach Ravager or something, and then, you know, you hear the caster like 200 supply, but it's fake supply, and so I just get in this mindset of roaches suck dick. So I think that's part of the aversion, and then definitely what you're saying, where I'm feeling like I have to go out and do something instead of sitting and being content with my powerful army, at least until it's time to go.
So yeah, I mean, I think with the style you're playing, you could be actually super chill. If you get forced into mass roach, absolutely, you do have to make some plays. And that's why this is a very specific scenario, this battle mech stuff.
Right.
But the thing is, as long as you're still droning up behind those roaches and then going up to the Lurkers and the Vipers, you have the most cost-efficient composition in the game, essentially. Until your opponents learn how to do things like EMP, Vipers, and snipe or execute really lovely range lib and or siege tank sieges, which is super friggin' advanced. And, like, I'm telling you, versus most players, even at GM, even if they've got that army set up, say, here, well, you just run over here, and they're like, well, do you know how hard it is to move a tank lib ghost army? Like, they can't cover their bases. All you need to do is just find a new angle, set up, and go, haha, come and fight me, and they'll take these terrible engagements into you. You add good Viper usage, and you'll be great. So you should definitely have confidence in your ability to go to the later stages. I like that you're making plays. I think it's great. We'll just add a quicker Hive as a priority because the Lurker upgrades are so absolutely insane. So try to always do it where Lurker Den and Infestation Pit go down at the same time.
Okay.
So I guess I can add some, like, general random... I guess this can go with random notes up the top. Infestation Pit with Lurker Den. And one of the things you can analyze in your replays is, you know, straight to Hive, straight to lurker ups plus a viper or two, right? Plus, let's say 2 vipers is standard to start things out, assuming you've got the gas. So if you can check that, I mean, most people, they drop the infestation, they're so busy, 2 minutes later they remember to build the hive. 2 minutes after that finishes, they go, oh, I've got a hive, shit, let's make some upgrades, right? And there's just a lot of time in between where a little bit more attention on that, and you'll find you're like, oh, I have the super OP steroid lurkers way earlier in the game.
Right. Which are fun to use. They ground and dies.
Oh, you cut out, you were cutting in and out there just with that line.
Sorry, I was really conscious about the volume of my keyboard, so I may have messed with my threshold too much. But
don't worry about it. Yeah, turn the threshold down. It's fine. We love the keyboard, even if you're playing during a coaching session, which sometimes we do. Sometimes honestly, I think just talking is the most useful thing to do right now with us.
Right.
Up to you though. If you're like, no, I really want to hop in a game, you just let me know. Obviously, it's your coaching time. So I tend to focus on theory more, unless a player's like either 1, really unprepared, or 2, is really keen to get into live games, one or the other. But always, I mean, a mix of everything is always good. It just comes down to what you feel.
No, I definitely enjoy the talk because, like I said, in all my stuff, my biggest problem was, what do I do? So just being able to talk about what to do is pretty much item A1 on the list.
Fantastic. Well, how about we talk about build orders then, and how we can get up
for sure.
with a bit more order. So with this build order, by the way, you went for a mega greedy build. So what you kind of did was the fastest upgrades of all time, a super fast layer and fast gases. So you're going to go up the tech tree and the upgrade tree really fast, while also having the very standard quick third. So you're doing a little bit of everything at once. And that means it's going to be very hard for you to actually take advantage of the third base. So let me quickly give you 2 really quick ways of analyzing your replays, or one main way that'll help you out in general whenever you're looking to just improve your basics across all matchups. So you want to start from somewhere about 2:30, 3 minutes, anywhere about there. Grab your screen, go to the very bottom right hand corner of the map, somewhere where there is nothing. Down there we've got some cactuses and some little eggs and things to look at, some little trees.
Right.
We want to go units tab. So you should know the hotkeys for all those tabs in the top left, by the way. If you're not used to using those, get used to them. It's always a sign of someone not looking at their replays enough. Units tab, and we're going to go 4 times speed. And all I want you to look for is idle lava. So remember, on 4 times speed, anytime there's idle lava sitting there, it's usually a sign of a sticking point in our build.
Yeah.
Maybe we're supply blocked, we've got an overlord, maybe we just got distracted by other things. We're going, ooh, what next? And we just didn't inject and then didn't spend the lava straight away. Sometimes it's our macro cycle is just disorganized, where there's no structure to it. So like we're randomly injecting and randomly building units, whereas those should kind of be paired up, right? Because it should always be like, all your lava's just popped out. Well, time to start new injects and to spend the lava and to build overlords to make sure we're not getting supply blocked. And those 3 actions, you kind of chain those together in a nice, neat macro cycle structure, and it can really level up your game as a Zerg. I mean, there is moments where you diverge from it and you focus on other things, but having that as a quick, tight, organized cycle, I find really useful. Is that something you'd focused on consciously at all, the macro cycle?
Definitely internalizing the inject cycle. And that's one of the things that appeals most to Zerg. Just there's always a rhythm to it that's set by the 25 seconds or whatever it is for inject, and then you inject and then go spread your creep or something like that. But as far as what to do beyond just inject, I was kind of like, well, I did the thing. Look at me. Give me my participation trophy, please.
Well, that's awesome. And I think this is powerful. Some players get to a really high level without ever thinking about this. And I'm like, oh, cool. Like when there's not that much happening, they have perfect macro. But the moment there's a lot going on, they end up just behind on basic actions, right? Because they're kind of in that APM sync of doing things in a disorganized way. So if we look here, inject, and then we start spreading creep. So yeah, that's your cycle is inject, spread creep, look around, go, tech. And guess what? We've got 9 lava here this whole time.
Right.
So we can see that, that macro cycle kind of solves this, right? And then you spend lava after putting all your buildings down. But it should always be that like the drone production takes kind of priority over everything. And that is and the unit production in general, and that's just like a fundamental rule in almost every situation, right? Unless it's like, there's an all incoming, I need to drop my Bane Nest or something like that, right? So the choice here, and the creep, I don't mind the creep going in at the end of the cycle. I actually find my creeps a little bit more haphazard these days, where it's high, it's kind of just mixed in with the buildings and stuff, where it's like in between actions. I think maybe it's like after I build some buildings. I don't know. It's very subconscious. I'd need to go watch a replay and really pay attention to see what the structure is and bring it into the front of my mind. But the main thing here is inject, unit production, and overlord production. So my question is, what do you think seems more comfortable? Overlords first or unit production first?
Overlords, at least in theory. In practice, I don't know necessarily like what I would do in the moment. I would probably just like panic and hold down the Z key or some shit. But at least in theory, Overlords taking precedence sounds more comfortable.
So I actually do it the other way, where for me it's like, I want to build drones and units, and often while I'm doing that, and I guess even when I'm injecting, I'm already eyeing my supply. So there's a little bit of checking, right? Oh no, I've already got too much free supply this game. I actually can skip this round of Overlords, right? We never want to get to the point where we're building, as chat says, a laser of Overlords.
Right.
Because that's, 109 out of 278 supply, which is just ridiculous. It's something he does have to fix, which he never has. Sometimes he does better on it than others, but whenever he gets like deep into his rhythm, it happens. It just happens automatically. So it's up to you, honestly. A lot of people do prefer Overlords first to kind of make sure they don't hit the supply block. For me, I'm like, actually getting the drones out or the units is the higher priority. But I'm also very methodical about making sure I leave space for those Overlords as well. So it's whatever works for you. The important thing is just going, oh yeah, and then you do it, you go, yeah, this does feel good. I just need a bit more practice with it and to internalize it. Or you go, no, this feels bad, let's do it the other way. So are you going to stick with Overlords right after the injects and then the units, or the other way around?
That's something that's hard to say with confidence without doing it, but
let's choose one for now to try first, and then you can flip it once you practice it a bunch on your own.
Well, we'll try units, just because, like you said, it's something you can keep tabs on, where as you're making the units, you can look up and be like, shit, I need Overlords, or no, I don't, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and like, as a habit, if I'm so busy I'm not looking, I'm building units, and then I just build a few Overlords, and it's like quite by feel. Like if I'm on one base, it would be one Overlord, right? If I'm on 3 bases, it'd be like 3 or 4 Overlords, just based off feel, right? So it's very intuitive with how many Overlords I build if I'm really friggin' busy. But if I'm chilled, we're both macroing. I got map vision. There's nothing, no pressure, nothing stressing me out. I feel like I know what's happening in the game. I'm not like, what the hell is he doing on one base? I'm much more like, all right, build units, looking at supply, and build the Overlord count that I need, right? Okay, and we always want to keep a supply gap. Don't be hugging that supply gap. Some people are like, it's inefficient if you build an Overlord ahead, so I never go more than like an 8 supply gap or something. And I'm like, don't be stupid. That's so dumb. That just sets yourself up to get supply blocked. And building an Overlord ahead of time is a small amount of opportunity cost. 100 minerals is not that big. 200, 300 minerals is not that big. Actually, not being able to spend your lava literally grinds your lava machine to a halt. Whenever you have 3 lava on a hatchery, that hatchery does not produce more lava. The injects will add to it, but it's not producing. You're literally losing production. You're losing opportunity cost of those drones mining. It's always better to have that expanding Overlord gap, right? Where it might be 40 out of 50 early on, but it's as I get more production and more bases, as I go up, it gets bigger. I'm happy to be 70 out of 110. I'm happy to be 130 out of 200. When I get to 130 supply, if I've got a big economy, I don't mind going up and hitting 200 supply with Overlord straight away. That's fine, because my production, I'm on 80 drones. Like, I will max out in the next minute anyway, so it's totally fine. But yeah, fiddle with that. Make sure you add that structure. It's a great way to get more consistency in the chaos. And what's really good is, like, we look at your camera right now in this replay. Micro, jump home, and then look at what you've done. You just built drones, and now you're kind of scrolling around and you're looking about your bases. Now you've just done some injects, though your queens weren't next to them. And it's not bad, but that would have been a lot quicker if we were more practiced. So if we watch that one more time, we kind of visualize the order you've said, which is the same order I use. It's micro, 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 micro. And you've already got that timer in your head, which you already have as a player. You're experienced enough, I can see it, where you're like, I got to inject and spend my money and stuff. I know that's already in your head, but you're like, well, I'm about to kill 20 SCVs potentially. Let's micro. But then it should be always your anchoring thing is inject, inject, inject. Build units, build overlords, right? But instead here, it's a little bit haphazard. And it's not just that you're slow, because you're pretty quick at this. You build drones, you then do an inject, you then start doing other things. That's not that slow. What I tell you though, is I guarantee you're not watching your minimap while you do this, because it's 100% disorganized.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's not muscle memory. You're trying to think of what you're doing as you're doing it. And that means we're going to have drops and liberators slide into our mineral lines without us ever seeing them. Not that I'm the best player against that either. Don't get me wrong. I'm pretty terrible with my map awareness these days, but it's been better recently. And it's, if you can be just following a set order, it's inject, 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 spend the units, build the lava. You know, you're going to naturally be more relaxed because it's something you've done 100 times. So you will be faster, even if it's just a couple hundred milliseconds. But you'll also have more attention free. So you're processing the game a bit better. You're thinking about what you're going to do next. You're looking at the mini-map more often. All that stuff happens. And that's the power of automation. You know, sometimes I talk about the macro cycle and people are like, why do you keep going on and on? Why are we spending so much time talking about this? It's the power of automating the mundane things so that you can actually focus on the important things. And that's kind of what we're talking about with reacting and scouting as well, where it's like, well, before we think about that, like, let's make sure we just have map vision first and foremost. Like, the number of people who say, man, I wish I would know how to react when I see a Stargate and a Twilight Council, and they have no link spotters anywhere on the map ever in the game. And I go, well, that's like so unimportant, right? Because even if you know how to react, you're not going to see when the attack comes out or where it comes from. Like there's layers that come before that, right? That are going to make your life more relaxed and more easy. And as a Zerg, we always want to see as much of the map as possible. If they want to deny our map vision, well, they have to invest in something like this, where they're running a big pack of Hellion Cyclone around and they're building a kind of short-term composition, you know, a very mobile composition. If they're building up the big later game units, we should be able to see the whole map and control the whole map. So automating these basic tasks hopefully frees up a bit more of your brain power to think about the next step. It also just makes you more calm and collected, so you're watching your mini-map. It happens quicker, and hopefully things just click a little bit nicer there. I guess our last point on this kind of idea of, hey, how can I analyze replays and what can I look at there? Remember what I said there, 4 times speed plus units tab, you know. Yeah. Don't look at screen. Use that as a sticking point. And what can you do? Go to a minute before the hiccup / sticking point in your macro, whatever you want to call that. And I want you to like reverse engineer, like dissect why that happened, right? So it might be you just really get freaked out and when an oracle flies into your base because you've lost so many drones to oracles that you're just not calm when oracles and it throws everything else off. So like sometimes it's something like that. Sometimes it's, oh, this part of the build, you don't really know when things are meant to go down. So you need to memorize, you need to go define the build a bit better. So you're not as thrown off, right? There's distractions. It could be like we saw there. I was just like, it's probably just the macro cycle at the 4-minute one we found where you were doing things a bit out of order. So the macro cycle probably solves that one. But it's kind of nice to do that because it's a way of finding where you mess up in the game and then going back and looking at the context and saying, oh, is there a pattern here? Is there like a system going on that's going to repeat itself? If there is, let's get on top of that sooner rather than later. Yeah. Awesome, mate. So these are all a lot of tools I'm kind of writing out here in the notes. Make sure you go back and read these over the coming days. And whenever you're stuck, you can always apply one of these. So the one thing you're going to have to do, though, is tighten your build orders. And we haven't really talked about that yet. So just looking at this opening, I'm gonna write out maybe like a kind of simple build order down the bottom here of our notes, I guess. So build order, in terms of what could keep us safe here, I mean, let's assume you still open up the same way. Because you're going roaches, you can probably play a bit lighter on queens. Let's take a look. How many queens do you normally build?
Usually it's 5, just so I can have the 3 on the hatches and then, 2 on the map to really work on creep. Because I like the map vision aspect of creep. I think on this one I went up to 6 because I had that. I saw the at some point I saw with Zerglings and stuff was coming out, and I think right here I got stuck with my Zerglings on the wrong side of the map and kind of panic built more queens because I was like, shit, there's Hellions and my Zerglings aren't right there. But normally it's 5.
Okay. We'll just say 5 queens is standard. I think that's totally fine.
Yeah.
If you obviously if there's BCs, that's going to be one of the things you're a little weak to as a roach player, but hey, there you can go attack with your roaches. Sometimes that messes up a BC player, even if it's a reactive attack. You could always build more spores and queens as well. But I mean, in general, something like 445 spores versus any Hellion opening is just a fundamental thing. Because hey, you don't know what's going on. There could be banshees, unless you've seen a second factory, which this guy has just gone pure factory. We should always build a spore because that's going to defend Lib, Banshee, BC. All of it's defended by the same thing. In terms of other stuff, I guess we could also say maybe like a 4-minute Roach Warren, because we're not going super heavy on queens. So the Roach Warren, and I guess we could add 2 times gases at the same time. So 4-minute Roach Warren plus 2 gases, and then when that finishes, we can build like, I don't know, 7 roaches for safety or something like that, right? Now, you may build some Zerglings earlier than this. Maybe you get like 12 Zerglings in case the first Hellions try to run past your queens, or it's a mixture of just the Zerglings kind of surrounding them or engaging them. Obviously, 12 won't completely shut them down, but it'll give you some modicum of safety, and then the roaches are out by the time that Hellion count blossoms. And then from there, it's just going to be kind of, when... So notice I've defined when you get up your gases. Your early defensive tech, your spores. These are some things that you want to try and define for your other matchups as well, and you could probably apply something pretty similar to your other matchups, and it would work pretty damn well, to be honest. But you can kind of work on this, because we're not going to have time to today go through each matchup. When would we get our 4th, 5th, 6th gas? I'm asking myself as well as you. Probably when we hit 3-base saturation. It's really important to get a lot of minerals up to make sure we don't rush up the gas too quickly. You're already going to have 3 gases reasonably quickly. So I think if we go 3-base saturation, take 4th, 5th, 6th gas. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool.
So that would be going from, 50... What is 6 minus 9? What is 66 minus 9? Whatever that is, 57. So it'd take us from 57 to 66 drones then?
Yeah, and I mean, obviously you just kind of, as long as you're good with managing your rally points, which... Oh, interesting. Weird habit. I just noticed.
Yeah.
Your hatcheries are rallied to your natural. Now, let's just check through these few minutes before if that was just because it ended up undersaturated for some reason. So it looks like you never rallied to your 3rd. I think you maybe when you built drones, you just built drones and clicked them on the 3rd minerals.
Correct.
Terrible habit. Awesome. Very happy we picked that up. I've coached a few people recently who have this habit, because if you're really busy dealing with shit, you want to be able to drone at the same time. And you just want to be able to hold down that drone key, build overlords, do thing. We don't want to have to be like, build units, go over there and click it. It's a pain in the butt. And it just slows down your ability to multitask under pressure, makes it easy to get supply blocked, distracted, and so on. So managing that rally point is really nice. It's like, hey, natural saturated, let's rally over to the 3rd, all hatcheries, right? And then you can change the rally points back, right? Oh, okay. I'm just going to take the extra gases in my main or whatever, or my natural now. So maybe we'll build some drones and manually rally them there or whatever. But try to have the rally points set up in an automated fashion so that we can know those drones are generally going to go to an okay place. And even if you like get to that point, you're like, oh, I have 23 drones on my 3rd out of 16. That seems bad. It's really not that bad. Remember, up to 20 drones on a base on minerals is actually fine. Those 4, they're not mining 100% efficient, but they're still like half efficient or so. And if you're going to take gases, gas, maybe and build some evos, whatever else, it chews up a lot of drones. Build spores, chews up drones. So it's totally okay to go oversaturated. Don't be afraid of those red numbers, which people tend to freak out about. Yeah, better to go a little oversaturation than to end up on 12, 11 on every base, which a lot of players have that tendency because they're so averse to letting the red number appear above their hatch.
Right. So that definitely feels accurate.
Awesome.
Even just switching over here and seeing the 17 on a 16 was painful the couple times I did, so I'll keep in mind that's just fine. But it's just the visceral reaction, like, this shit is red, it's bad, you know?
Exactly. That's kind of why I'm a bit about that. I'm like, it's kind of good, but it's, you know, I wish it was 18 or something. Because I feel like always having 1 or 2 more workers, especially as a Zerg, is good, right? Where I'm like, you know, or if it set out at 20, right? And it's like, okay, well, if you're being really good, you try to keep that on like 16, 17. But, you know, if it's up to 20, it's totally fine. So I have a bit of a pet peeve that they made it 16. Because I'm like, well, that, you know, you can always, if you're a good enough player, you can program yourself to think of it a different way. But for beginners, I'm like, oh, it's totally fine. If they got, I actually used to always say to people, go 18 workers on each base. Don't stop at 16. As standard, because you're always going to lose drones to harass. There's always going to be ones that get chewed up building spores or spines or this. Better to have a little bit more than a bit less. Not to mention, you're not stacking your workers. Past maybe your first base, hopefully you do stack your workers at the very start. But other than that, you're going to be pulling workers on and off, doing different things. Half the time, they're not stacked up. Like, look at your third base. Let's take a glance at that. Actually, your third base is perfectly stacked for 15 workers. Who knew? Let's look at your natural. There's 17 workers there. All right, they're actually all really nicely stacked up. This is not a good example of workers stacking up badly. Never mind. No examples on this map.
We do that. And then second and third, I just kind of rally and let them be. Which
is totally natural. You got better things to do with your APM.
Right.
Awesome, man. So yeah, I added that to the random notes. Always rally workers to the newest base, so you can just build drones and know they're generally going somewhere they're going to be useful. And then when you have the APM, you can go add the extra gases or, you know, add this or that, and that'll be super nice. Back to those build notes at the bottom. I guess yeah, it's kind of for you to define things from there, where it's like, hey, when do we drop our lair? You know, when do we do this and that? So I think maybe we'll go spores versus any early opening. Maybe we'll go lair at 445 as well. 445 lair. You come up with what works for you. Some people look at game timer. Some people go, as my third gets saturated, I do this, or as my natural gets saturated. So what are you thinking for, like, kind of when your lair starts, when you go Hydroden, Lurkaden, Evo chambers? What do you feel?
I feel this. So just as a habit that I have, my practice partner very, very much likes DT openers. So I have this internal fast ass layer just to get OVs out, and I don't really know when to get them outside of when I need to defend 4 DTs in my mineral lines. So, is there a decent timing for that? The faster feels better for me because it's faster to lurkers, but I don't know, like, within game state or anything like that.
Well, I think as long as we don't, if we're rushing lair and evos, this is how I generally look at it. And like I said, I want you to kind of find what works for you. If we're rushing lair and evos to the point where we have 10 lava and no minerals, it's like, well, no, we should be droning first, right? Even if it's just a little shuffle of the prioritization, generally at any point, it should always be like lava takes priority. If we're ever like, well, I'm on 33 drones and I'm making a lair and 2 upgrades and prioritizing roach speed and 1-1, it's just bad because your economy is just not building as quick as it can, right? So as long as we keep that as at the top of the priority list and that's not being impinged, anything's kind of fine, right? So you'll find where that is for you, and there may be a marker for that. Let's write out your ZVP opening. So with the ZVP, I'm going to give you a very quick tip. That is, your first Overlord will sacrifice straight through their main from the very start, right? So it can first check their natural if you want. But basically that means game starts, you grab your first Overlord, you go move there, move there. Do you see where I'm signaling?
Yeah.
And that way you're going to know if it's Stargate or Twilight Robo straight away, so you can choose which branch you're on, and that's very important. This is a good way of just, because you do need that drastically different response if there's DTs or quick glaive adepts to if there's an Oracle opening, okay? So we do need kind of 2 core branches to our build. So it's like, normally I like there to be 1 baseline, and then there's like responses off very specific things that are needed. In ZVP, it's like, well, it's about 50-50. So it's like 2 main trunks to the build at the start. Luckily, they're very similar. So versus Stargate, here's a great way of thinking of it. Let's say 345 spores. Okay. And if you stagger those or whatever, you can do that. 2 queens are covering a base. I can delay the spore here a little bit. All sorts of advanced adjustments you can make. But in general, 345 spores, 445 roach warren, lair, and 2 times gases. Because if they go Stargate, build an Oracle or 2, this means the roach warren is still ready if they go straight into Charge Zealots or Glaive Adepts or anything like that after the Stargate units. But obviously nowhere near quick enough. If your opponent opened straight Twilight Council, that roach warren and so on, that layer, way too late, right? So versus Robo Twilight, versus those ground plays, all we're going to do is flip those 2 things upside down, which has a beautiful little synergy to it. Now, we might tweak those timings a little bit here or there, but in general, see what we've written there in your document? How does that look?
Yeah, I like it. Your formatting is fantastic just throughout this.
Thanks, man. I've looked at so many build notes and my own ones get kind of messy sometimes, but it's like just having it in an easily readable way is always quite nice, because then we can glance at it and remind ourselves of things quite quickly, right? And you might develop your own shorthand, which differs from mine a little bit. Well, obviously everyone has their own way of doing it. But you'll notice that I try to, as the game goes on, at the start, if I'm going like 17 hatch, 18 gas, I might add heaps of details when I'm first working on an opening. But as you go on, it gets more and more just, hey, when are the gases going down? Hey, what's the marker for the roach horn? Okay, past then. Like later on, it'll be like, hey, when do I drop my infestation pit and lurk it in? It'll be like, oh, well, as soon as my Hydroden's done, as long as I have 66 drones, 3 base, 6 gases fully saturated, I can start it. You know, like I might just, it becomes more and more loose, but as long as I have some sort of rule or some sort of you know, way of thinking about it, it can be really, really nice. Yeah, awesome. So we're out of time, I believe, so we've got to finish up in a sec. But that's cool. So we've got a different opening in ZVP, but they'll both end up in a very similar spot. You've got a pack of roaches. I guess I can add a little sub note here. 8 safety roaches is standard, right? When that roach warren finishes, right? And obviously that can be a lot more, it can be a lot less. But just as a standard thing, it's like, hey, roach warren's done, build 8 safety roaches in ZVP there. That'll be nice. And yeah, you're just going to try to kind of get up into roach, hydra, lurker, and then add vipers. I assume you're normally going to go double evo chamber and stuff. So for now, we're keeping that pretty ill-defined. I'd like you to come up with some sort of marker or rule that makes it a bit more consistent for you. I think it's really cool, though, because we're throwing everything into one composition for the mid to late game. So I think just the concentration of practice there is going to be great. We're not playing any Zergling Baneling. Yes, we'll have Ling speed at the start with all of our builds, but no Banelings, no mass Ling players, no Broodlords, no Ultras. It's all Lurkers and Vipers in that late game, and I think you're going to get a good chance to become an absolute expert with those units. So that should be really cool, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it very much. At some point in time, probably when the weather literally cools down, and I have more time to play, I'll really watch this VOD and internalize everything. And then, do you want, for future coaching sessions, would you prefer contact through email or through Discord?
Email is usually a little better, but if you catch me on Discord, that's fine. Some people message through Discord, so whatever works for you. But yeah, I tend to prefer email, but whatever makes the most sense. Sometimes it's nice if we're both on at the same time and can just kind of go, oh yeah, this time? No, that one doesn't work, and then, you know, I can just send you another one straight away. So whatever goes. But yeah, I hope you do get some games in. Glad to hear, you know, you're nice and busy. And good luck on the ladder, my man. That should be awesome. So so many tools and things there. I will. You mentioned watching the VOD. I think I will put this up on YouTube. I'm just trying to think of what we should call it. I mean, we covered a lot of different things. It's like structure to learning plus what lurkers is your Patronus. Structure to improving. So how to improve and focusing on our Patronus unit. Coaching Zerg Diamond 3. There we go. Yeah, I think there's a lot of tools we talked about and a lot of structures. Even if it's obviously I'm not showing the notes on screen because we've got a 2-monitor setup. It's a bit too complicated to swap around, but for anyone who was watching, hopefully you guys picked up on it, and pretty much every single thing that I write out in our document, I'm also vocalizing. So if anyone can be bothered, they can always go back through and kind of, rewind and write the notes down themselves and stuff. Do you mind me showing on screen quickly kind of what the notes look like in case anyone wants to...
fine.
All right, we'll put that up real quickly. So in case anyone's watching the VOD up to this point on YouTube and is like, oh yeah, I want to see this stuff, they will see your name. You're totally fine with that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Just wanted to check you're okay with that. Don't want to dox you, mate.
Oh Jesus, I forgot going through this. You asked if I was in a clan, and I was like, actually, sir, I'm a founding member of the Big PP Club.
Well, we will definitely show that then. So if anyone's watching on YouTube, I'll give you guys a chance. You can screenshot there. Ta-da, and we'll go down. To be fair, we had... who we were coaching? Cash for Teens? Teens for Cash or something is his alias. And I was like, well, I'm not going to Google that. And I advise nobody Google it. I never did. I assume it's an adult website, And, okay, here we go. And here's the bottom of our notes for today, cutting off there. Everything below that is all our prelim info and stuff, but hopefully you guys can screenshot that if you're really studious here. Thanks for watching the coaching. We'll catch you guys in the next one. Don't forget to support the Patreon, links below. Good night, guys.